I'm not afraid of anything. I'm just risk adverse. Like, I'm not afraid of sharks, but I'm not hopping in the ocean during feeding time either. Like, I'm not afraid of heights, but I'm not climbing to the top of a tall mountain just to peer over the edge. Like, I'm not afraid of kids. I'm just not having any of my own. At least that's what I used to tell myself. You see, back in June, as I was packing and preparing to leave for a motorcycle trip from Virginia to Colorado Springs, my wife comes to me and says something to the effect of, "Hey, babe, you know how we've always said that we don't want to have kids?" Yeah. "And you know how we always agreed that if we ever changed our minds, we'd have a conversation?" Yeah. "Well, that's this conversation." Okay. So we decided that we were going to give it a go. A few days later, I left on that motorcycle trip. It was to be an 1,800-mile, 4-day, 3-night camping in national parks and campgrounds motorcycle trip. Not exactly my wife's idea of efficient travel. So she bought a plane ticket and would be joining me later that week in Colorado Springs. That first night, I stayed in Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. It was a family campground, and typically I avoid those because, well, kids kind of annoy me. However, this time I found myself observing these young families in a different way. Like, there was a young man with his two boys camping next to me, and after spending an entire afternoon setting up camp, they were rewarded with s'mores around the campfire. And I couldn't help but think about the possibilities of having a family of my own in the future, and my wife and I sitting around a campfire and giving our kid s'mores. I slept well that evening. That next day, I arose and packed up my camp and got on my motorcycle and headed out of the park. As I was leaving that cool June morning, there was fresh cut grass on the air, and I found myself lost in thought again, thinking of what the future may hold for me. When all of a sudden, up ahead of me on the right hand side of the road, coming out of the woods fast, was a bear, and it was running directly towards me. It crossed the entire right hand lane in one full step. It could have easily reached out with its paw and swiped me off my motorcycle. Had I collided with that bear, it would have been game over for me. I had no time to throttle. I had no time to evade. I just happened to miss the bear. In my rearview mirror, I could see the truck behind me slammed on its brakes. The bear spanned the entire front of that truck. It had to be the largest black bear I had ever seen in my life. My heart was pounding. My adrenaline was pumping. I could almost taste it. And I thought to myself, how dangerous is this? This is a completely unnecessary risk. Yet I love it. Yet I have never felt this alive. It's incredible. And I thought to myself, maybe sometimes the risks are worth it. Later that week, after arriving in Colorado, my wife joined me, and we decided that we would go on our own adventure. Colorado Springs is home to Pikes Peak, America's mountain, standing at 14,115 feet. Heights be damned, we're going on that ride. So together, my wife and I, on top of my 2014 Harley Davidson Road King, which we named Sally because ride, Sally, ride, we ascended the mountain. It wasn't long before our surroundings turned from trees and Bigfoot crossings to snow-covered mountain tops. And our views up the mountain soon became our views down the mountain. Around every hairpin curve, harrowing drops straight down the mountainside, which one mistake we could easily fall off and fall to our fiery death. Of course, my wife is enjoying herself and she's videoing the whole time. Sometimes the road seemed to even disappear into the clouds. And as we got to the top of the mountain and parked in the parking lot, we stepped off of our motorcycle and were immediately greeted with the reality of elevation. I mean, our knees were slightly wobbly beneath us, and our heads were dizzy and swimming. We were quite loopy, to be honest. So together, hand in hand, mostly to hold each other up, my wife and I stepped to the edge and we looked over. And oh my God, what an amazing and incredible and awesome. I don't know how many words I can find to describe it. The view is absolutely breathtaking. I mean, literally, the air is very thin up here. Very thankful that my wife and I chose to take that adventure because we learned something that day, and it was proof to me that sometimes the risks are absolutely worth it. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to go swimming with the sharks anytime soon, but we do have another adventure in store. You see, that day, God decided to bestow upon my wife and I yet another gift. And I am happy to share with you all today, friends and family, that coming February 27th, 2024, we expect to welcome our son, Theodore Lane Williamson.
Aw.
You are worth it.